Breaking news today in federal court, judges will hear challenges to Georgia's absentee ballots ahead of that crucial January 5th runoff election for 2 U.S. Senate seats. We'll talk about that and pro-life victories today on Sekulow Live.
Live from Washington, D.C., Sekulow Live. Phone lines are open for your questions right now. Call 1-800-684-3110. That's 1-800-684-3110. And now, your host, Jordan Sekulow.
So we've got 3 lawsuits actually in the state of Georgia, 2 in federal court being heard today. The first, the GOP, it's a GOP lawsuit that seeks to reverse the ratio for rejecting a ballot, asking that every ballot envelope be reviewed by 3 officials, and if one of the reviewers says the signature doesn't match, the ballot would be rejected and sent through the cure process. So again, the people would still have an ability to cure if that was actually their ballot and they just signed it bizarrely or signed it kind of, wrong or too fast and didn't match. They would still have the ability to go and cure their ballot in what they're expecting to be a very close races. So again, it wouldn't disenfranchise a vote, but it would. But what they're asking for is that they at least not just automatically count those, which is what happened in the general election. And we have now, in that lawsuit, the Secretary of State in Georgia has agreed to a statewide audit of absentee ballot and the signature matching. He's actually going to let the University of Georgia, like forensics and scientific teams and statisticians, do that. That's a big victory right off the top. That is aside from the court cases. So, folks, don't be discouraged in Georgia. Things are changing about how this election will be conducted already. So what will happen is for this election coming up, for the Senate races. So statewide, the Secretary of State has agreed to do these samples, large samples all over the state of signature matching to make sure that they were following the rules and laws of the state. Now, we still need to get more details from the Secretary of State in Georgia, but that was a victory. That is a victory without even having to go to court yet. The second federal lawsuit filed by Republicans is in one of Georgia's 14 congressional districts. It would be, it also is set to be heard Thursday. It looks to block the use of those drop boxes for submitting absentee ballots, roll back the signature review guidance to the original guidance for signature review, and prevent county election administrators from opening ballots until Election Day, which I believe is the law of the state of Georgia. And it's because they started mixing up, is it mail-in, is it absentee? There are no mail-in for this. There are absentee ballots that you can request, but this was not like a mail-in ballot election. So that's not part of the law in the state of Georgia. But they treated in the general election absentee ballots like mail-in ballots.
Yeah, and by the way, one of the cases is filed in the U.S. District Court in the Atlanta division. That's North Georgia. Yeah, it's Atlanta. And the other was filed in the Southern Division in Augusta, Georgia. Both of these lawsuits are involving the Senate race. So that's what's really important to understand here. If the plaintiffs are successful, it's the GOP, it's the Republican National Committee and others. If they're successful in this, that will impact how votes are tabulated for this upcoming election, which is significant because, as you know, it was basically chaos in Georgia. So I think this is a positive development. It's going to be up to the courts, but at least they're in it early this time before the counting really starts. But election voting has already begun.
Yes, it has already begun, but I want to play, we'll play for you when we come back. The Secretary of State in Georgia has agreeing to give the process of verification over to experts at the University of Georgia when it comes to signature verification. Again, the RNC, the NRSC, they still want more information about how that's going to be conducted. But let me tell you something. I'm hearing that people are again, they're just distraught in Georgia, Republican voters. You can't win an election going into it being distraught and discouraged. You got to get pumped up, fired up. That's why these lawsuits are happening. And even without the lawsuits, the pressure on the Secretary of State has now led to this positive change on verification. So get pumped up. If you want to keep those seats red in Georgia, we will take your phone calls again, 1-800-684-3110. We're on YouTube, Facebook, radio, SiriusXM, and, of course, you can support our work at aclj.org. welcome back to Jay Sekulow Live. This is Jordan Sekulow. We are taking your phone calls because we believe that what is happening in Georgia is so significant. Well, I mean, especially...
It's a national election.
Yes, because you've got 2 U.S. Senate seats up for grabs, and it will determine who is in control of the United States Senate. Is it Republicans or Democrats? And Nancy Pelosi is going to be in charge of the House. Listen, realistically speaking, there's a very good chance Joe Biden is going to be president. And then the Senate could be in the hands of Chuck Schumer. And so, folks, we are seeing good things happening in Georgia, though, when it comes to changing how the election is conducted for these runoff seats. And let me play for you the Secretary of State, who I think has done a horrendous job, by the way, in Georgia.
Yep.
But he's coming around to the pressure. Take a listen, Bite 32.
We are conducting a statewide signature match study with a research team from the University of Georgia. This team will work to restore faith in the process and put these rumors to bed once and for all. All Americans, all Georgians, all voters, all deserve respect.
Well, yes, all voters deserve respect. I'm glad that he's having the signature match study done with the research team from the University of Georgia. I'm more encouraged that as we are on the air, 2 lawsuits are being heard, one in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Georgia in Atlanta, and the other in the United States District Court for the Southern District of Georgia in Augusta, both dealing with closing these ridiculous loopholes that were created in the mail-in process, lack of signature verifications, drop-off boxes where you could, do things the old-fashioned way, as I like to say. Andy Economo is senior counsel for the ACLJ. He is in Atlanta this week, actually. And Andy, you called me last night. You said there were a lot of ads running already, but at least we've got to get people to understand that they have to vote. I mean, you can't go with this, we're going to, they stole it, so we're going to not vote.
Yeah, that's correct, Jay. There are a lot of ads being run for both sides. There are some vicious attack ads. Some are trying to extol the merits of each candidate, but there is a completely total all-out campaign by both the Democrats and the Republicans for these 2 seats, which will affect the control of the United States Senate. But the biggest mistake that we could make would be to say that, well, the election on November 3rd was illegal, invalid, it was somehow tainted in a terrible way, and therefore we're not going to vote. That's a mistake. The franchise, the right to vote, the exercise of the right to vote is paramount and important. We've got to get out there. Early voting in Georgia started December 14th. I'm going to vote early in Georgia. There already are people who have voted early in substantial numbers, and I'm glad to hear that. Don't listen to those people who tell you not to vote because the election is tainted or somehow problematic. Get out and vote.
One of the things I want to tell you, if you're watching on our social media platforms, be it Facebook or YouTube or any of the other ones that were on Rumble, whatever it might be, I want to encourage you, if you're on Facebook, hit like and follow. If you're on YouTube, which is really for the last month, we've been broadcasting simultaneously on YouTube, we want you to, of course, share this with your friends. That's really important. But also subscribe, hit the subscribe button, and the bell next to it, so that you will know when we are coming on the air. So if everybody that's on our social media platforms right now would share it, subscribe, and hit the either like and follow or the subscribe and bell, or go to Rumble and hit the notification there, that's a good way for you to get information. Now, Harry, I'm looking at the lawsuits that now have been filed in Georgia. By the way, these do not impact the presidential election. These are for the Senate elections on January 5th. But the litigation, the legal issue, in a sense, it'd be a bit of a vindication if we were successful, because the violations are Article 1, Section 4, Clause 2 of the United States Constitution, confers on the legislature each of the states' power to regulate the time, place, and manner of holding elections for senators. It then says there's violations. You got the election clause, the electors clause, and violations of the Georgia Code.
Absolutely. So one of the things that this litigation, which has now been filed in 3 lawsuits involving state and local officials, one of the objectives is to return voting to constitutional standards. And so I commend the litigants in this case because it's affirmative evidence that Republicans in Georgia have apparently received a spine infusion. That's a good thing. So rather than wait until the outcome has been certified or wait later in the process after the votes have come in, the Republicans in Georgia are saying, no, we need to ensure that this voting process, including absentee ballots, including signature verification requirements, we need to ensure that all legal votes are indeed counted, meaning that all illegal votes are not counted. And so I think this is a very, very positive development. I also think that the litigation, the complaint is very, very thorough. And it's important to note that they cite Bush versus Gore, having once granted the right to vote on equal terms, the state may not by later arbitrary and disparate treatment value one person's vote over that of another. That's Bush versus Gore. And so in this particular case, I believe the litigation filed by the Republicans is very, very timely, and it ought to be heard. And in my judgment, based on my review of the litigation so far, it deserves prompt judgment, and it deserves a preliminary injunction.
Well, they're arguing today, so the injunction aspect of it's being argued today. Now, these are two, as Harry said, these are two very serious lawsuits. They raise serious allegations. There are serious questions. I think the Georgia officials, Jordan, right now feel like they're under some pressure to do the right thing, finally. Yeah, I do. I think that, they're basically, I'm talking to people who are regional directors out in the state of Georgia for various state parties. I think, the North Carolina Republican Party sent people there. Florida Republican Party has sent people there to help in these efforts. But voters in Georgia, I mean, what I'm hearing is that, people are discouraged because they've lost faith in the Secretary of State, and you've got to have enthusiasm. You got to have enthusiasm for the Senate candidates. There's two great candidates there who, by the way, were strong supporters of President Trump. Let me be clear. Kelly Loeffler came into the Senate right before the impeachment. Right before.
She was
like weeks before.
And I mean, literally, it was like the first thing she had to do. And she was standing firm with President Trump in an action that, again, had been sworn in the Senate. Same with David Perdue. There wasn't even a question about him standing with President Trump. So, again, Trump supporters need to understand that these are two senators who did everything possible for President Trump. In fact, David Perdue in Georgia was spending, because his was a normal Senate race. It wasn't like the jungle primary that Kelly Loeffler won. Millions and millions of dollars, and it was co-advertising Trump and Perdue.
Right.
Because he kind of took over the Trump effort in Georgia. And again, so he was not trying to shy away or distract. But again, do you want Chuck Schumer's America? Do you want whatever Joe Biden's view, but Kamala Harris's America or Nancy Pelosi's America? Because they're shut down. Their America is still shut down and highly taxed with Green New Deals, even in the middle of a pandemic. And these tax hikes they want to kill businesses with who have been trying to survive through this pandemic. Or do you want to check on that? I mean, and you have to be realistic. I see people calling me a traitor on social media. First of all, we still represent the president in our outside of our ACLJ capacity. So I don't think he thinks we're traitors. We've been fighting the fight. We continue to fight the fight. But let me tell you something. It would not be good for President Trump's legacy either if you just let these seats go. And unfortunately, I'm hearing way too much out of Georgia that Republicans there buck up. Seriously. You got to turn out for that. You have a chance to shape how the next at least couple years and maybe 4 years will be by keeping empowered Republicans so that there is a check on the Biden administration. If not, there is no check at all.
Mitch McConnell fan, I know we got a minute here. Mitch McConnell has been very outspoken on this. So have other members of the Senate. Everybody knows what's at stake here.
It's a national election, both in how it's going to be conducted, Jay, and then also in the impact. The one thing I would just add to what Jordan said, he's exactly correct. But think about confirmations. I mean, confirmations will flip to the control of Leader Schumer if both those races go the wrong way. So the legacy of the Trump judiciary, Jay, that's on the ballot in Georgia as well.
No, you're absolutely correct. We'll talk to Andy. Maybe we talk to Andy during the break here. Do you have a video you want to run, Will? What do you want to do? No, we'll talk to Andy during the break. He's there. I'd like to get a sense of what we've got.
Remember, this is the Matching Challenge Month, a very important month for the ACLJ as we're working on all of these issues. Support the work of the ACLJ. Double the impact of your donation. Donate today at aclj.org. We'll be right back.
Ads are unrelenting. I mean, both sides, obviously, but like every ad, everything on every break is an ad.
That's right, Jay. I mean, whether you're watching YouTube or whether you're listening to the radio or whether you're watching television, every 2 minutes there's an ad from either Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue or from Ossoff and Warnock extolling their virtues and condemning that of the opposition. So it is a relentless ad campaign. I've lived in Georgia 54 years. I have never seen anything like the ads that are flowing from these two sides. There are signs up. There are ballot boxes left for absentee ballots in a public library on Ponce de Leon Avenue the other day that I drove by, and I looked at it. It wasn't very secure looking to me. It looked like something from the 1950s. So these suits that have been filed, especially the one that has been filed in the Northern District of Georgia in the Atlanta Division, Jay, it was filed by an excellent law firm, McGuire Woods, who is a very well-known law firm. I know you know them.
Oh, very well.
And,
Richard Cullen was their managing partner. Yep.
Yeah, and I've read the lawsuit. It's an excellent lawsuit, and what it really focuses on is how they approach the counting and use of absentee ballots. Very well done, and very scary when you see how loose the procedure is in the 159 counties and how it varies from county to county, and how he says, or they say in the lawsuit, it needs to be uniform.
Yeah. No, I think these are very legitimate lawsuits. They have a direct impact on the Senate elections. I want to know also what the Senate is thinking on this. We'll go to Fan Bennett when we come back to our radio audience. But, hey, hit subscribe right now if you're on Facebook or YouTube, and hit that bell. We want to get up to 300,000. Here we go.
All right, welcome back to Jay Sekulow Live. This is Jordan Sekulow, and we are taking your phone calls at 1-800-684-3110. That's 1-800-684-3110. So you've got the three lawsuits filed in Georgia. We've talked about the two federal lawsuits being heard today. One, the GOP lawsuit is seeking to reverse the ratio for rejecting a ballot, asking that every ballot envelope be reviewed by three officials, and if one of the reviewers said the signatures doesn't match, the ballot would be rejected and sent through a cure process. So you're not disenfranchising any voters. You'd give them the ability to come in and cure their ballot and prove that it was them. But you're also then saying to those potential fraudulent ballots that if the person doesn't show back up, it's probably somebody who, again, may not be real or may not have even cast that vote, didn't even know a vote was cast in their name, and that's why the signature didn't match. The second lawsuit, again, it gets to the drop-off boxes, the signature review again, and the guidance on that, as well as when they can start opening these early arriving absentee ballots. They want them to wait until Election Day. A third lawsuit was filed actually by the RNC in state court and the state Republican Party of Georgia, seeking to restrict the use of drop boxes to business hours.
Yeah.
Like what's going on in the middle of the night. Like Andy's saying, they don't look that secure.
Right.
So at least it's kind of got daylight on them.
Yeah.
So there's one lawsuit saying don't even use them. The other lawsuit saying if you're going to keep using them, at least make it have to have daylight so that people are around and seeing what's going on at these drop boxes. Because when you allow it 24/7, 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. is when you get those dumps of those questionable ballots.
That's what happened last time.
But the Secretary of State
is saying no to this.
Is starting to say that, he won't do this on his own. This is taking lawsuits. What he is allowing and is going to do is allow ballots. Basically, they're going to do a test of the signatures, but not just in Fulton County or one or two counties, throughout the state, and he's not going to conduct it, thankfully, through his office. He's going to have statisticians from the University of Georgia, signature experts, writing experts, like forensic professors, people like that, come in and do these random samplings of the different ballots that came in. These are, again, mail-in ballots. But, one thing that's interesting, the Secretary of State has still not agreed to allow election observers to actually be able to see the process. So in Fulton County, for example, which is where Atlanta is, so it's the largest county in the state, there's 2 rows right now set up where they're going to count these ballots with, again, these barricades.
Yeah.
And when you actually look, first of all, the screens are all turned the other way, so you can't see the screens. And the tables furthest away are up to 60 feet away. So you definitely can't observe. You have no idea what's going on.
But having said,
so that the people are having a tough time recruiting volunteers, which we know are so critical in this, so they can't pull water main break. We got everybody got to leave right now. You got to get, again, folks, however this comes down with the rules and the laws, be there if you can be an election observer. That is going to be key. Make sure you're voting. Make sure your friends are voting. That you can already early vote there. Again, Republicans can win these 2 races. Okay, I mean, but they are not going to be able to do it if you're sitting on your hands and saying no one cares about me, no one cares about us.
Which means Democrats could win that race too.
Very easily.
That's
also
the issue here. Now, I'm not. Again, we never tell you how to vote, but let me tell you. And Than,
I don't see Democrats saying I'm not going to vote.
No, I don't see that at all. In fact, the opposite. And Stacey Abrams, whatever you want to say, has done an unbelievable job of mobilizing her base. I mean, no question about it. What is the stand, like the National Senate committees, what are they doing?
Yeah, all eyes are on it. I mean, pouring money into it, just like Jordan said, money and resources and all of the efforts to get the vote out. I mean, it is going to be conducted both in function and in impact like a national election. We've talked a lot about the function, but think about the impact afterwards, Jay. I mean, if the control of the Senate floor switches to Leader Schumer, you've heard a lot about, the Green New Deal and court packing, which both of those things are monumental issues. But think about tax policy. Think about the tax cuts that President Trump was able to get through. Think about the nominations both on the executive level and the judicial level. That is going to be one of the longest lasting impacts that President Trump has. But if the control switches to Leader Schumer, they will be just as aggressive on that front. So I would tell you this, Jay. I would say both the campaign committees and then every single senator knows that this is a national election. And quite frankly, on the Democrat side of the aisle, they're probably happy to see if there's any suppression on the Republican side. Look to that as a barometer.
There's also, I was asking you, what about the National Republican Senatorial Committee? And I'm looking here, Harry, they are a plaintiff in the Atlanta case. So let's take a look at that one. Both the election clause and electors clause involved, but also Georgia rules, laws, and procedure.
Absolutely. So I think let's focus first on Georgia laws and procedures, but let's also note that the Republicans have filed 3 suits in total, plus they are engaging in legislative action in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia, which are all part and parcel of a Republican effort to change state election laws in response to what? Election irregularities. So I think it's very, very important to note that election law in Georgia, particularly with respect to electing senators, is subject to the Elections Clause of the Constitution. And so what we want to make sure of is that there is indeed election integrity and election security to ensure that every lawful vote is indeed counted.
Yep,
I think
the plan.
This approach by the Republicans, and particularly the National Republican Party, these types of efforts are indeed overdue, but we can also say that at least they're filing suit before the votes are
I was
counted.
about to say exactly the same thing, Harry, and I'm going to say that to Andy as litigators. At least the lawsuits are being filed weeks before the actual election, not the day or a week afterwards or two, Andy.
Right. Today is December 17th. There's a hearing in federal district court in Atlanta today. The election is January 5th. that has given us the court significant time to make a decision, and at least the litigation has begun. And these lawsuits, as I said, the one in Atlanta that has been filed is an excellent lawsuit. It talks about absentee ballots that are being allowed without meaningful checks on their validity, and saying that we need meaningful signature checks and matching pursuant to the First and 14th Amendment to the Constitution. It orders the defendants to implement signature review by 3 reviewers, provide meaningful public observation from at least one person from each political party, and implement safeguards to require ballots that are mismatched to be segregated for additional review consistent with ballot rejection procedures. So what the main thing here, Jay, and this is why this is so much like Bush v. Gore, provide consistent signature matching standards to all counties in Georgia. We have to do it the same way in Liberty County as we do it in DeKalb County, as we do it in Dougherty County, as we do it in Appling County. We cannot have inconsistent procedures because that violates equal protection. This is an excellent lawsuit, very well drafted, very reasonable, ought to be cognizable in court. I hope the judge grants the relief that is being requested. I do not know the judge, but I know the judge's initials are ELR. Who that is, I do not know.
We'll find out. See if we can find that out. Just curious. I mean,
yeah, it's interesting, too. The Secretary of State is trying to limit observers from seeing voters' signatures, citing claims that their addresses are confidential information. That is nowhere in Georgia law.
Right.
Nowhere in Georgia law. And anyone can be an observer. You don't have to be signed up. But you can go through the volunteer process, but anyone can be an observer in Georgia. So, again, he's wrong on that fact, too, and we've got to pressure him.
And now, your host, Jordan Sekulow.
All right, welcome back to Jay Sekulow Live. Again, thank you for joining us for our second half hour of the broadcast. I was just talking about this because I'm working with folks who are on the ground in Georgia. And this is interesting. So they're citing Georgia code. I don't have to go through the code numbers with our national audience, but it requires that poll officers conduct elections in public. And it requires that all proceedings at the tabulating centers be open to the view of the public, not registered observers, to the public. That's just Georgia law. And the Secretary of State put out this bulletin December 9th of 2020. So this was in the lead up to, again, this is the lead up to this election, the runoff election, which will determine the control of the U.S. Senate. And he's incorrectly limiting observers from seeing voters' signatures on envelopes, citing another statute to claim that addresses are confidential information. However, that statute only prohibits intentional interference, hindrance, or delay in election conduct. It has nothing to do with confidential information. In fact, if you can't see at least someone's name, how could you confirm that their signature was the right name?
I don't want to, but even with that,
but they're
you got to
this.
vote.
I'm telling you,
but that's what they're fighting.
Fought.
But I don't know what this secretary. But here's the thing: it's being fought in court, so you have no excuse but to vote.
No, and secretaries of state don't determine really the outcome of the election. Voters do.
Yeah.
David Perdue was ahead of John Ossoff. If they didn't have that 50 plus 1%, he would have been reelected. There only been one runoff because there was that special primary to fill the seat that, remember, Kelly Loeffler was chosen to fill a vacant seat. So she had to run and others ran. And so it was kind of a multi, I think there were 20 candidates in that race. She finished first and then Warnock finished second. So that's who the runoff is for. The votes are there in Georgia for either side to win.
Yeah, it's that close.
Okay, so, but Republicans sound like they are just teetering on giving it away. And what they would be giving
because of the presidential election, that is no excuse to throw out a conservative majority in the United States Senate.
Why would you want everything undone that President Trump has done just because you're rightfully upset? So how about righteous anger? Show up in droves. Show up in so many people show up to vote.
They can't steal it.
There's no way to steal it. And I know there's enough people in Georgia that are conservative or that want, even if they're not Republicans, they want a check on the other political party. And I'm sorry, folks, but you are going to have to get used to the fact that it is likely Joe Biden is going to be president. Okay? There are not a lot of legal challenges left. There's not a lot of moves by Congress left. Even the one that can be done is certain to fail. Okay, so even if you like the idea of them debating it, which Democrats have done in the past too, for 2 hours, and whether or not the electors should be thrown out, the votes aren't there in the House. The votes aren't there in the Senate, but especially not in the House. I mean, it's a done deal after that. Democrats control the House. They're not going to give the election to Donald Trump.
Let me tell you something else.
So you stop calling people traitors who are telling you honest truth, who have been fighting in these battles for the president since he's been in office.
I want to say something on that because I saw some of those comments too, and I find it ironic that people would be calling us, me and Jordan in particular, and Andy, who have represented the president through an impeachment process, through a special counsel, through 3 Supreme Court cases. And while it's true that we were not the primary election counsel in any of this, and that's true.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah, except for the Pennsylvania one, which for some reason I cannot figure out. The stay is still in place. Yeah. I don't know what they're going to hear it. They're going to decide whether they're going to hear it December 8th.
Which, by the way, is the only successful challenge that existed.
In the Supreme Court, yes. No, in any case.
In any case.
Yeah, no, it's true. But anyways, just saying, we're giving you a realistic assessment of what it is and what we have to be prepared for. And to say, there's going to be, could anything happen? Yeah, the world, anything can happen, but not likely. Let me tell you what is likely. There's going to be an election in Georgia, and 2 senators are going to be selected, and that's going to control fan in 20 seconds the United States Senate.
The difference between Leader McConnell and Leader Schumer, look, if you want to stay home and you were a supporter of President Trump, staying home just compounds the problem.
All right, folks, when we come back, we'll start taking your phone calls, your comments on YouTube as well. Again, support the work of the ACLJ. It's a really important month for us as we end the year. Your donations are effectively doubled. You double the impact of your donation. Donate today at aclj.org. We'll be right back.
And YouTube, we're staying live. We have a race between, we talk about political races. We got a race between Facebook and YouTube. So this is interesting. I don't know if that's, we have 10,700 people on my count viewing us on Facebook right now and 11,385 on YouTube. Who will win? And we will allow poll watchers. And we will have verifications. And all you have to do to vote is hit subscribe and share, or follow and like and share. And that's important. I want to go to Than on this because I do think that people need to understand, and Jordan, you've done a really good job of laying this out with this Georgia race. I mean, if the Senate switches leadership, it's a whole different world we're in.
It's a completely different ball game, Jay. Yeah, you're playing 100% defense on issues that we care about. Look, the judicial confirmations, the executive confirmations, the legislation, the Green New Deal, the court packing, all of it is full-scale defense. And here's the thing: I want to echo some comments about the Secretary of State's reaction on observers. Jay, there is something that people can do about this. The Secretary of State says, "Well, we need new photo ID laws." Well, okay, maybe that's true, but guess what we need right now? We need the existing law in Georgia enforced. He can do that, and people can have a role in that. Jordan said people should show up in droves to vote. I fully agree with that. They should also show up in droves to be observers. There should be so many observers that they can't keep them that far back, Jay. All we need for the integrity of an election in Georgia to happen is for the existing law in Georgia to be followed, and for the places where we know there were problems on November 3rd, for the people in Georgia to not allow those problems to repeat. They can show up in droves, and they can make sure that existing law is enforced.
That's exactly what we hope happens. And we're going to find out, it's only, 3 weeks away? Was it not even 3 weeks? What's today, the 16th?
It's about 3 weeks.
3 weeks. Folks, this is... Welcome back to the broadcast, everyone. 2 lawsuits have been filed in Georgia for the Senate race, and they're both serious. I want Harry Hutchinson to take a minute and describe both, and then Andy Economou was actually back in Georgia this week. So he's going to give us an on-the-ground report. But, Harry, you got 2 different lawsuits filed here.
I think that is correct. So when the votes are cast in person, and this is the Republican Party lawsuit filed, I believe, in North Georgia, when the votes are cast in person, Georgia requires photo identification to protect the integrity of the election process. In contrast, absentee ballots are verified by signature comparison, not a secure photo identification. By statute, a single election official compares the signature on the absentee ballot oath to the voter's signature on file. If the signature is missing or rejected, then the ballot is segregated and the office contacts the voter to provide an opportunity to cure the invalid ballot. As explained in more detail, many counties in Georgia on November the 3rd accepted virtually all absentee ballot signatures, rejecting an impossibly low number of mismatched signatures. So this particular lawsuit centers on ensuring that the absentee vote process complies with Georgia law. In another lawsuit file, the focus is on drop boxes, and both lawsuits actually talk about drop boxes. But one of the issues in Georgia is that these drop boxes, essentially, in my opinion, are set up randomly, if you will, throughout Georgia in an insecure location, and there's no security attached to them. And so it strikes me that that's an open and obvious invitation for ballot box stuffing.
The old-fashioned way.
The old-fashioned way.
So these are the challenges that are in place to try to stop this. Now,
right.
Andy, you've actually seen them. So, but I'm telling you, folks in Georgia, you have no excuse. You have got to vote. You've got this litigation going on to try to tighten things up, and even if it doesn't, by the way, in the district court, looks like the judge is an Obama appointee, I think.
It is.
Okay, but it's going to go to the Court of Appeals, and it goes to the Supreme Court, and these are actually real cases. These are cases that have merit and have a better chance of success, I would think, going all the way up. Having said that, okay, Andy, you're there, and you see these boxes, and you see what's going on, and both sides have got to engage.
Well, I was driving down Ponce de Leon Avenue, which is one of the main thoroughfares in Atlanta, the other day in the driving rain, and I see absentee ballot drop box, and it was at a public library on Ponce de Leon Avenue, and there was no security around it. I could have gone in and picked up the box and walked out if I wanted to. I could have put anything I wanted into that box. It looked like something out of the 1920s. And if that is a secure drop-off box, then, I'm Winston Churchill. It's just not the case. And that's the kind of things that this lawsuit seeks to prevent from happening. We've got to employ election safeguards properly with these absentee ballots to match the signatures, segregate those from additional review. They've got rejections on them, provide consistent signature matching standards for all reviewers, and do the things that preserve, I should say, the integrity of the ballot box, and that's not being done. In my opinion right now, it's got to be done for this election, and it's most important that people do not feel that we have been disenfranchised because of a defective election on November 3rd, but that we get out and vote. I was talking to a former Superior Court judge the other day in a little county in middle Georgia, Emmanuel County, that's in Swainsboro, Georgia, which has got a very small population. On the first day of balloting, an incredible number of 643 people came to cast votes in that little county in middle Georgia.
One of the cases has just been dismissed. Judge dismisses one of two GOP challenges to Georgia voting procedures in the runoff. This is the Augusta-based judge, Judge Hall. He's saying this is a classic Purcell case. I'll tell you what this means, folks. These plaintiffs are asking me to do what our Supreme Court and our 11th Circuit have cautioned against. I'm not willing to go there. That is because they're saying the state can fix all of this. This is the difficulty. Now, I think that judge is wrong.
This is, again, what the president's legal team ran into throughout these election challenges that came in before the votes were cast, is judges coming up with any excuse possible not to hear the merits of the case and to say, I mean, it's understandable to an extent that they say, you don't need me to do this. The state has the authority to do whatever they want with the laws. You don't need me to come in and say it. But if there's been a violation of the laws, if the laws are not being followed, these judges are setting up the same thing where they're going to say, if you challenge it now, it's too early because the state,
and then
when you challenge it after, it's too late. And so, again, the polls show, though, that the Republicans are leading. All the new polls.
This is interesting.
Loeffler leading, Purdue leading.
I mean, if you look at
if people show up to vote.
All right, so we'll go through them. The Emerson poll has Purdue up 3, which is all margin of error stuff, but still. Fox 5 Insiders, the local station there, has Purdue up 1. Trafalgar has it tied. Only WXIA has Ossoff up by 2, and that was a poll from almost 3 weeks ago. On Loeffler's race, Emerson has Loeffler up by 0.2.
3.
0.3. Oh, plus 3, I'm sorry. Fox 5 has her up plus 1. Trafalgar has her up plus 3. Warnock, again, of this old poll, WXIA back in November, that was where Warnock was way up, 7 points. That's old. Remington Research, which is also old, had Loeffler up 1, but the most recent has it. They're all within the margin of error, which means this is a real race. Mike Pence is in Columbus, Georgia right now. Let's listen in.
The administration trampled the religious liberties of Americans on a regular basis. They compromised the conscience rights of doctors and nurses and religious charities. They even hauled a group of nuns known as the Little Sisters of the Poor into federal court to force them to compromise their faith to live under the mandates of Obamacare. In fact, we saw that religious intolerance 2 years ago when Amy Coney Barrett was up for her first seat on the Court of Appeals. You remember it? The Democrat leader of the Judiciary Committee actually said she was concerned about Amy Coney Barrett's Christian faith. She said, and I quote, "The dogma lives loudly within you." And Hollywood liberals have been attacking Judge Barrett ever since. Well, I got news for the Democrats in Washington and their friends in Hollywood. That dogma lives loudly in me. That dogma lives loudly in you. And the right to live and worship according to the dictates of our faith lives loudly in the Constitution of the United States of America.
All right, folks, I think what Mike Pence said, by the way, was just perfect. What this means to me is you got to get out and vote, because you know what, everything he just said, I think about this, on the religious liberty issue, all the issues that we're concerned about here at the ACLJ, he's 100% correct. And the Senate going the other way will impact that as much as the presidential election. You understand that? As much as the presidential election.
Absolutely. It's all on the line, both domestic religious freedom, international religious freedom. We haven't even talked about the international religious prisoners that the president engaged for. All of that is on the line in Georgia. Certainly, the office of the White House, the office of the presidency has a role in that, but so does the United States Senate. And, Jay, just one tack-on thought to the conversation you had with Jordan about the polls. The very most important poll in both of these races happened on November 3rd when people went to the ballot box. David Perdue beat John Ossoff by 2%. If you add up all the Republicans in the other race, Kelly Loeffler, Doug Collins, the other Republicans against Raphael Warnock, they won by a percentage point. This is a very close race, but the last time voters went to the ballot box just a few weeks ago, David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler would have won. Jay, that's the most important poll out there, and people need to point to it.
You know, Mike Pence, the vice president, was talking about the Little Sisters of the Poor being dragged into court by the Obama administration. He was talking about conscience protections. We just got a huge case yesterday, a big win where the Department of Justice is filing on behalf of our client. We're going to talk about it today. We decided to move it to tomorrow on that very issue, which tells you how important these races are and why. I'm glad these lawsuits are filed, but regardless of that, you got to go vote in Georgia. It's critical. Don't buy into this, it's not going to matter. You see the race, they're neck and neck. Conservative constitutionalists can win this if they get out and vote.
All right, folks, we're going to be back. We're going to take more of your phone calls. I know people have been holding on the line. We're going to get to those calls, those questions that have come in through Facebook, through YouTube as well, and Periscope. You continue to call us at 1-800-684-3110. Remember, this is such an important month for us at the American Center for Law and Justice as we're battling. Again, so our case involving that Vermont nurse, you may remember, who was lied to and then ended up in an abortion procedure, and we won the case at the civil level. Now the Department of Justice is opening up an investigation. It was sued, actually, the University of Vermont for violating the pro-life conscience rights of our client. Okay, and so you've got the civil action, and now you've got the DOJ action. This is the kind of work we do at the ACLJ. Support it. Double the impact of your donation. The matching challenge goes through the month of December at aclj.org. Donate online today. We'll be right back. Jay Sekulow Live. I want to get right to phone calls coming in because Phil from California has been holding on. Phil, welcome to Jay Sekulow Live. You're on the air.
Hello, it's Bill, actually. Thanks for taking my call. I have a question about FOIA requests. Don't these agencies know how to protect their data or even substitute misinformation? I mean, these are intelligence agencies with covert abilities, right?
Yes, but if they do that, first of all, the intelligence agencies, which we've been successful with, and so, by the way, we have DNIs right now. We had a former DNI, Rick Grinnell, who works with us at ACLJ, who has started declassifying a lot of the information so you didn't have to go through this process. And Ratcliffe is still in place right now, so when we're filing these FOIAs on Swalwell, he is in place running he can direct that FOIA process or just put the info out that could occur in this situation. But anyone doing that is committing a federal crime. So while they'll fight you in court over what should be because it's classified or what they have privileges about sharing, you have to be willing to fight for the information. You will ultimately get it, and usually it leads to requests for more information because as much as you could imagine what they may try to do, most government bureaucrats don't want to spend 20 years in jail. So they'll fight their legal rights that they have and their exceptions in court, but I'm not worried about them. Again, one, they're not there to protect congressmen like Swalwell. They're there to, if it's classified, it's to protect the U.S. security, not Swalwell, not him. And then second, I mean, we've had great success in our FOIAs that lead to massive information.
Incredible.
That again, think about this. ACLJ files a lawsuit. Where's the blog on that, Will? I mean, it's like back in, 3 years ago in Vermont. And we're filing the lawsuit on behalf of that nurse. Now the Department of Justice has sued the University of Vermont for violating a pro-life conscience clause right, so it's like a civil rights violation. That's the kind of work we do. That's where it leads. The civil work can oftentimes lead to the Department of Justice and the federal government getting involved. I think that's important. I mean, the case is the United States of America versus the University of Vermont Medical Center. USA versus University of Vermont Medical Center because of our client and your support of the ACLJ so we can represent our client at no cost, which is very important. You can imagine a nurse not being able to go out and hire the same kind of high-profile law firm as the University of Vermont can, that hospital. So she gets the same kind of lawyers the president has in all those matters, impeachment and Mueller, and at no cost. That's because of your support to the ACLJ. This is a great month to donate. If you're thinking about it or you already have before in the past, this is a great month because you double the impact of your donation if you donate online at aclj.org.
I want to say something also on this Georgia race because I think it's important. Harry mentioned the fact that you got these two lawsuits that are pending that involve both the election clauses and the electors clauses and the Georgia statute. But you know what? Regardless of that, if the numbers are high enough and the turnout is large enough, it's not going to matter. So, I mean, I think it's very important that these lawsuits are going on. But the right to vote is sacrosanct. It's sacred in the United States. And I know there's a lot of negative down there. I'll go to Andy first. I know there's a lot of negative and people are discouraged. But there is just too much at stake in the state of Georgia. This is the first time that I can recall in my lifetime where the state of Georgia is going to determine a half of a branch of government.
That's true, Jay, and there is a lot of frustration down here, frustration among people that I speak to because they feel that their vote doesn't count. It didn't count the first time. It's not going to count the second time. Why go out? Why do this? Why go through the process of either voting in person or absentee ballot? It's going to be stolen. It's going to be taken. You can't think that way. You've got to have faith in the system that it's ultimately going to work out if you get out and vote in sufficient numbers. And that's what conservatives, people who believe in life, people who believe in the Constitution, people who believe in the statutes, like all of us at ACLJ and the things that we champion, you've got to make that effort to go to that precinct on election day or multiple precincts that are available and open in Metro Atlanta, for example, places all over the place where you can cast an in-person ballot. I'm going to go on Saturday or Sunday to do it in person because that's just the way I do it. But you can vote and you can make a difference. The mistake you make is sitting home and saying, forget it, it's not worth it, I'm not going to do it. It is worth it, and you have to do it. These lawsuits mean nothing unless you vote.
No, that's exactly right. And that's why, Harry, as important as the lawsuits are, the voting is more important, the actual vote.
Absolutely. So it's very, very important for the people in Georgia to look at what is at stake.
Yes.
And they have the power, if you will, to decide the future direction of the United States Senate. Keep in mind that if you look back at all of the victories achieved under the Trump administration with respect to the nomination and confirmation of a huge number of judges, both at the appellate level, the Supreme Court level, and the district court level, all of that was possible because the Republicans control the United States Senate. So I can't tell you how to vote, but if you are conservative, you ought to consider the impact of your vote on the future of the judiciary in the United States. It's in your hands.
No, clearly it is. I mean, this can't be understated. Let's go ahead and take Ann's call, last call of the day.
Yep, last call of the day. Ann, welcome to Jay Sekulow Live. You're on the air.
Thank you so much for all you do for America. I'm a longtime supporter and admirer. Okay, in regard to the upcoming Georgia Senate race, I just want to raise a concern and speak up for our military vote. I believe there are about 13 bases there, maybe.
Yeah.
And I'm concerned that our military vote is, number one, encouraged, and then number two, neither disallowed nor changed through something weird like adjudication once received. And then also any military personnel that might be deployed abroad, that there are enough controls in place to ensure their votes are treated with just as much importance.
Well, they're supposed to be, and we've heard no indications of anything interfering with the military ballots, even in the previous election. In the election for president, you didn't hear anything on the military ballot, so I feel good about that. But of course, Georgia has a big military presence and a big military base, several of them. I'm thinking I went to law school in Macon. Warner Robins, I guess Warner Robins was the closest one. They're a big Air Force base. Dobbins up in Cobb County, and there's in Columbus. It's Fort Bragg. Which one? Fort Benning in Georgia. So I mean, you got a lot of. I mean, I'm leaving half of them out.
Yeah.
So yes, military election support is protected. I don't want people to get overly hyped up about how if this case comes out the wrong way, I'm not going to vote. Don't do that. It's good that they're filing the suits. I think it's important that the lawsuit and litigation's filed. But however that comes out, folks, you need to vote.
Absolutely. I mean, folks, 100%. If you don't vote, you can't win. And you know what? This throwing up your hands in the air, don't act like babies. That's exactly what the left wants you to do. Show up, vote. You can vote now. You can vote in person. And again, if you show up in big enough numbers, you can't be outplayed. You can't be the fraud won't win. It's not massive enough. You can win this. It's up to you. If it's a loss, it's because you all sat at home in Georgia. This is a bottom line truth. And so, again, stop acting like babies. Start acting like adult voters, and protect the president's legacy with keeping control of the U.S. Senate. Support the work of the ACLJ at aclj.org. In our Matching Challenge Month, we will talk to you tomorrow.